I'm a black guy, about 5'10" and around 225 pounds. If you saw me walking down the street, you'd probably see someone big, someone who looks intimidating. But what you wouldn't see is the war going on inside my head every time I step outside my apartment. I'm constantly paranoid about looking like a creep without meaning to. It's like a shadow that follows me everywhere, a filter the world puts on me before I even open my mouth to say hello. It's not that I'm dangerous. Honestly, I'm pretty introverted. I'd rather stay home reading or playing a game than going out looking for trouble. But my body seems to tell a completely different story to everyone else. I work at a store with long aisles and quiet corners where the silence can feel heavy. My job isn't just stocking shelves or checking inventory, it's calculating trajectories. If a woman walks into the same aisle I'm working in, I'll literally abandon what I'm doing and wander into the cleaning section or the dairy aisle just so I don't end up walking behind her. I don't want anyone feeling that pressure on the back of their neck, that instinctive fear of there's a big guy following me. It's exhausting, mentally draining, living your life constantly trying to prove you're not a threat, not a pervert, not someone dangerous. I'm not saying women shouldn't be cautious. I completely understand the world we live in and why they have to stay alert. I respect that. I support that. But it still hurts. It hurts knowing your presence alone can be a source of stress for someone who's just trying to buy bread. A few nights ago, that paranoia made me make a decision that ended up confirming my worst fears. And it all started with something stupid. A set of keys falling to the pavement in a parking lot. I had just finished my shift around 11 p.m. The air had that cold bite that late nights get. I was walking to my car, a gray sedan that honestly needs a new engine, when I heard the metallic clink of something hitting asphalt. About 30 feet away, a woman had just dropped her keys while trying to pull her phone out of her purse. In a normal world, someone would walk over and say, "Hey, you dropped these." But my brain doesn't work like that. My brain immediately went into panic mode. If I walk toward her, she'll think I'm following her. If I bend down to pick them up, she'll think I'm trying to grab her. If I speak, she might scream. I froze. She didn't notice the keys were still on the ground, partially under a parked SUV. I watched her walk toward her car, a small SUV of her own, moving farther away from them. My heart started pounding so loud I could hear it in the empty parking lot. I had two choices: ignore it and let her drive off without him, or try to help and risk becoming exactly the kind of man women are taught to fear. I hesitated too long. One step forward. Stop. Another step. I caught my reflection in the dark window of the store. A big silhouette, hood up, walking slowly in the dark. I looked exactly like the guy from a crime report. She got into her driver's seat. Just before closing the door, she scanned the parking lot one last time. She saw me. The eye contact lasted maybe a fraction of a second, but it felt like forever. Her pupils widened slightly. Adrenaline. She slammed the door shut. The lock clicked loudly in the quiet night. If I didn't act now, she'd drive away without her keys. But if I walked any closer, I'd confirm every fear running through her mind. So I raised my hands, palms open. "Excuse me, you dropped your keys." My voice came out deeper and louder than I intended. It echoed off the brick walls of the store. She didn't respond. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel and the car started reversing slowly. The reverse lights lit up the pavement, right over the keys. Something in me snapped. I ran. Not a jog, a desperate sprint. My sneakers slammed against the asphalt as I reached the keys and grabbed them seconds before her tire rolled over them. When I looked up, her car had stopped just inches away from me. The window rolled down barely an inch. She didn't look at my face. She looked at my hands. I held the keys up and immediately stepped back. "They fell when you got out," I said softly. "I just didn't want you to lose them." The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, she spoke. "Put them on the ground." Her voice was steady, but cold, tactical. I obeyed immediately. I knelt down slowly, placed the keys under the streetlight, and backed away several steps with my hands visible. "There you go," I said softly. "I'm going back to my car. I just didn't want you stranded." I walked away, feeling the weight of her eyes on my back. When I got into my car and turned the engine on, my headlights illuminated the pavement. She still hadn't picked them up. She was waiting for me to leave first. The moment I turned the corner of the building, she sped out of the parking lot like she was escaping something. I drove home feeling like the villain in someone else's story. My apartment is small, quiet. Sometimes it feels more like a cell than a home. I locked the door, took off my hoodie, and collapsed on the couch. My mind kept replaying the moment she locked the car door, that look in her eyes. I went to get a glass of water. That's when I heard knocking in the hallway, hard knocking, on my neighbor's door. Mr. Garcia. He's an elderly man who lives alone and can barely hear anything without his hearing aid. The knocking continued, urgent, desperate. I looked through the peephole, and my stomach dropped. It was her, the woman from the parking lot. She was pounding on Mr. Garcia's door, crying, still holding the same keys I'd given her back. Fate has a twisted sense of humor. The woman who was terrified of me was now standing outside my apartment looking for help. Then the hallway lights turned off. The motion sensor must have timed out. Darkness swallowed the corridor. She gasped. Before I could stop myself, I unlocked my door and opened it just a few inches. The yellow light from my living room spilled into the hallway. She turned, and when she recognized me, pure terror flooded her face. "Don't move," I said. Immediately I regretted it. Please, don't panic. I live here. I just heard the noise." She didn't answer. That's when I noticed something I hadn't seen in the parking lot. Her lip was split. There was a dark stain on her sleeve. She wasn't running from me. She was running from someone else. Then we'd both heard it. Heavy footsteps coming up the stairwell. Slow, confident, getting closer. Her phone slipped from her hands and hit the floor. Her eyes were locked on the staircase. My brain went into overdrive. If I closed my door, I'd leave her alone with whoever was coming. If I stepped into the hallway to help her, I'd probably become the suspect if the police showed up later. But then I looked at her face. That fear wasn't about me. "Get inside," I said. It wasn't a suggestion. It was urgent. She hesitated. The footsteps reached the final flight of stairs. Inside, now. I stepped completely away from the doorway. She rushed into my apartment. I didn't lock the door. Instead, I stepped into the hallway and waited. A man appeared at the top of the stairs, white, around my age, well-dressed, but his eyes were full of rage. He stopped when he saw me. "I'm looking for my girlfriend. She came in here." "There's no one here," I replied. "Move, man." I didn't move. "People live here," I said calmly. "You're making a lot of noise." His hand dropped toward his pocket. My heart jumped, but I stayed still. "You should leave." We stared at each other for what felt like minutes. Finally, he stepped back, spat on the floor, and left. A few seconds later, the building's front door slammed shut. Silence returned. I waited a minute before going back inside. She was sitting on the couch in my living room, hugging her knees, pale, shaking. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to thank me." She told me her name, Elena. The man was her ex. Things had turned violent during dinner and she ran. She thought she was going into a friend's building. She got the wrong floor. I gave her my couch for the night, grabbed a first aid kit for her lip. Then she looked out the window. "He's still there," she whispered. I checked carefully. His car was parked next to mine, engine running, waiting. "You're not leaving tonight," I told her. Her cell phone buzzed. She read the message, and her face turned completely white. "Elias," she whispered. Her hands were shaking. She showed me the screen. "He says he knows I'm in apartment 3B. She swallowed hard. "And if I don't come downstairs in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police and telling them a man kidnapped me."
It felt like the ground disappeared beneath my feet. That was his winning move, the kind of dirty, calculated play people like him rely on. He knew exactly which strings to pull. He understood that in a room with a frightened woman and a 225-pound black man, the police wouldn't walk in asking polite questions. The message was clear. He didn't need to touch me if he could weaponize the system against me. "He's smart," I muttered, bitterness creeping into my voice. "He knows exactly how this looks." Elena stared at me, horror dawning across her face. I think that's when she truly understood what I was risking just by letting her in. A man like him could turn my own apartment into a crime scene with a single phone call. "I'm not letting him do this," she said, suddenly, a spark of anger cutting through her fear. "I'll go downstairs, I'll tell them I'm fine, that you helped me." "No," I cut her off immediately. "If you go down there, he'll put you in that car, and if the police show up while you're with him, he'll spin whatever story he wants, and they'll believe him before they believe me." I ran a hand over my face, forcing myself to think. Panic wouldn't save either of us. I needed something smarter, something that would exist beyond his version of the story. Then it hit me. "Elena, I need you to record a video, right now. Say your name, the date, the time. Show your injuries. Say you're here by your own choice, that your ex attacked you, and that I helped you. Send it to someone. Back it up any way you can. We need proof before the sirens get here." Her hand shook as she hit record, her voice trembling while she spoke into the camera. Meanwhile, I moved to the window. His car was still there, but he wasn't inside anymore. He was leaning against the hood, phone to his ear, looking straight at my window. He was making the call. A siren wailed in the distance, then another, closer. Elena finished the recording and uploaded it just as flashing red and blue lights began bouncing across my walls. "They're here," she whispered. "Stay away from the window. Listen to me," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "When they come in, you speak first. If I say anything, they'll think I'm controlling you. You tell them everything. Don't let his version become the truth." I stepped into the center of the room, hands visible. I took off my hoodie, leaving just a plain white t-shirt, nothing that could be misinterpreted, nothing hidden. Heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. Radios crackled. Then, "Police, open the door!" Elena flinched. I looked at her one last time. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of me. I walked to the door, took a slow breath, and opened it. A blinding flashlight hit my face. "Hands where I can see 'em! Get on the ground, now!" I didn't argue, didn't explain. I dropped to my knees, then to the floor, hands behind my head. A knee slammed into my back. Cold metal snapped around my wrists. "Don't move," someone growled. My cheek pressed against the floor. The smell of leather and metal filled the air. Then Elena screamed, "Stop! Please stop! He didn't do anything!" Her voice cut through everything. "He saved me. The man who called you is lying. Look at my face. He did this to me, not him." There was a pause, a shift. "Checker," someone said. "My phone. I recorded everything 10 minutes ago. I'm here because I chose to be. He protected me." The pressure on my back eased. Silence stretched. Then, "Get him up." They pulled me into a chair in my own kitchen. The cuffs stayed on. Elena came close, placing a trembling hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay?" she whispered. I nodded. Words wouldn't come. A voice crackled over the radio. "Suspect is the caller. Repeat, caller is the suspect. Proceeding with arrest for assault and false report." From outside, I heard shouting, but this time it wasn't about me. A moment later, my cuffs came off. The sound of them unlocking felt unreal. "I just wanted a safe," I said quietly. Elena hugged me before she left. "Thank you for not being who the world thinks you are." Later, I found an envelope under my door from Mr. Garcia. He'd seen everything. He was willing to testify. For the first time that night, I wasn't alone. The next morning, Elena was at the station, with a lawyer, with resolve. After everything, we ended up sitting in a small cafe. For a moment, I felt normal. Then a phone buzzed. Her face went pale. "It's him," she whispered. "No, it's his brother, Julián." The message was simple. "I know where you live. 3B isn't as safe as you think." This wasn't over, not even close. When I got back to the building, a black car slowed as it passed me. I felt eyes on me, watching, recording. I went upstairs fast, too fast. The door to 3A was open. Mr. Garcia stood inside, shaken but unharmed. "They were asking about you," he said. I checked my apartment. Nothing stolen, but everything moved, intentional. A message. On my desk, a photo of me, and beneath it, 24 hours. My chest tightened. Then I heard a lock click. Behind me, I grabbed the nearest thing, a metal tripod, and stepped into the hallway. No hesitation, no overthinking, just movement. The man barely had time to react before I slammed him into the wall. "Tell Julian time's up." A small camera clipped to his jacket was recording. That's when I understood. Control, narrative, that's what they use. Not just violence. I ripped it off, took that from him. He ran. But when I checked the footage, something didn't make sense. A shadow inside my apartment, moving. My blood ran cold. I went back in, slowly, carefully, and there she was. Not Elena, younger, terrified. "She told me to come here," she whispered. "Said you're the only one who wouldn't be afraid." She handed me an envelope, a hard drive, evidence. This wasn't just abuse. It was bigger, organized. My phone rang. Video call. Unknown number. I answered. Julian, calm, smiling. "You have something of mine," he said. My grip tightened. "And I have something of yours." The screen shifted. Elena, tied to a chair, alive, barely. "Trade," he said. "The girl and the drive, for her life." My pulse roared in my ears. "You have 1 hour." The call ended. Silence filled the room. And just like that, this stopped being about looking dangerous. Now it was about becoming it.